I think the last year or so has demonstrated precisely what the difference is. Many of you will have seen the news reported at our website and elsewhere over the last few months about the performance of the giant global holding companies. Two of them, Omnicom and WPP, recently reported growth that was somewhat below the rate of inflation. In other words, despite the fact that both of them are making acquisitions, they're also kind of shrinking. How many of the independent PR firms in this room are shrinking right now? Okay. The best performing holding company right now is Interpublic, and Interpublic grew over the last quarter at about 5.5%. How many of you are growing at better than 5.5% this year? Our data from the last couple of years shows that the independent sector is outperforming holding company-owned PR firms by a fairly sizable margin. In broad strokes, the giant holding companies are growing by about 5 or 6%, and the independent sector is growing by close to 10%. I don't think it's any coincidence that one of the things the independent sector does better is attract and retain really good people. We have, for the past 12 years, conducted the best agencies to work for research in North America, the best consultancies to work for research in Europe. And there is an almost linear relationship between agency size and performance on that survey, which is to say that smaller, nimbler, more independent firms are outperforming the giant networks by a considerable margin when it comes to their employee perceptions. And one of the reasons that we have these three individuals on the stage with us today is that all three of them have done an exceptional job on that survey, and all three of them have picked up awards as best places to work. And so what I want to spend a little bit of time doing is discussing with them why the work environment was such a priority for them, what they've done to make sure that they deliver on that promise, how they measure their success in terms of attracting and retaining top talent, and what they believe the payoff from that has been, other than the fact that they've picked up silverware from the Holmes report, which I'm sure is the most important advantage. And, you know, I'll start by saying that I don't believe that there is an industry in the world where the value chain is quite as linear as it is in the public relations business, which is to say I really believe in the PR business. If you get the people side of the business right and you can attract and retain great people, those people will help you attract and retain great clients. And if you have great people attracting great clients, you'll make great profits. And I think that that's absolutely fundamental to our business. But I wonder, I'll start with Christine since she's holding the mic over there.
My hair defeated your other microphones.
If you can tell me sort of how and when you came to that conclusion and why it was so important to you to create that kind of culture at RBB.
Well, you stole my line because I always say, you know, if you have good people, they will keep good clients and everybody makes money. But it really came to me from 2 points. One, in that I'd been an independent agency and then sold our firm to a large global conglomerate, where I was able to get an inkling of some of the incredible benefits that the large global companies offer. But what I saw was that at that level, most of them consider it a gift. It's like we gift our employees this range of benefits, and they should be darn grateful that we offer those things. But oftentimes those benefits weren't customized, and a lot of them were meaningless to some of the employees. A child care stipend means nothing to someone who doesn't have kids. And if you look at what you see in a lot of big companies is you see rich benefits programs, you'll see lots of perks, but you still see dissatisfied employees who jump from one place to another. So when I and my partners decided to leave the global agency and start again as an independent firm, one of the things that was most important to us was to create an environment that what we call is an employee-driven workplace, meaning that those people who we rely on to service our clients and make the profits have to create the workplace. And by having it come from the bottom up, we would create a workplace that didn't just look good on paper, but that actually made a difference in the way we could recruit and retain our employees. And I think for me, that challenge became very evident almost as much as in saying we want a profit margin of 22%. It was, we don't want to have in our Council of PR Firm benchmark 30% turnover rates. We set a goal that said our turnover rates are going to be below 7% every year. And then we manage to that, and we work with the employees because we really believe that those employees are best suited to make the agency successful. And in the 11 years that we've been running the agency, we have seen, I think, the proof in the pudding so many times. And the last point I wanted to make is that I don't believe that having a best place to work environment or treating employees in an employee-driven workplace is a function of size. In my practice, I've worked with a lot of very large companies to create employee-driven workplaces. One of my clients has 30,000 employees. And I sometimes bristle when I go to places and people say, you can do that because you're a smaller agency. You don't have hundreds of people in offices all over the world. And I say that's baloney. It's a matter of the mindset that you create, the culture you create in your company. The only issue those big companies have is legacy issues. They have the legacy of the way it's been done and what people expect from big companies, and as other companies set the standard for how to create an environment where our people respect and admire our industry because we respect and admire them, we can set the standards for professional service firms across the globe.
Fraser?
I mean, your original question was when did it come to us? I think the reality was that it was in the planning of the business itself, and we started in 1999, and at that time we had a look at how we'd create competitive advantage, and it was very clear to us that if we became a leading employer, we would gain a very hard competitive advantage. And it's quite simple, really. If you are retaining talent at a churn rate of less than 10%, and your major competitors are at 25 to 30%, then you have a distinct advantage because it gives you a degree of stability that clients really want. It also allows you to take a long view of how you develop knowledge. And I think we're in a very simple business, which is absolutely built on the talent and the brains of people. Developing that talent, developing the knowledge base in the business is our R&D. That's where our innovation comes from. That's where our thinking for next year comes from. But it's a constant quest, and it has to be designed into the business, and that first means recognizing what actually I think a lot of the large networks don't, which is that people genuinely are the most important asset, not talked about as such, but genuinely are. And that means you need to take a strategic view of how you acquire that talent. You have to have a vision for the sort of talent you want. I think you need to hardwire what you're doing with people to the construction of competitive advantage very systematically, and that is having an edge in talent acquisition, in knowledge development within that talent, and that creates a degree of stability in your teams. The best people produce the best work. A stable environment means that you can deliver the best work over long periods of time, and that's what clients want, and that creates loyal clients. Stability in teams and the churning of people around teams inside the agency is also a bad thing for us. I think we're often accused as an industry of being a little skin deep, and we are. And sometimes that gives you a third-party perspective. At other times it just gives you thin knowledge, and that isn't acceptable to us. We need to have people working on fewer clients, going deeper within those clients. And we talk about shutting the door when we go into a client behind us. And what we mean by that is that we want to make it very difficult for any of our competitors to walk in and add value quickly. So we immerse ourselves very deeply in those businesses. And obviously that means having a very systematic view of skills development. And I think the industry has been traditionally a little bit weak in that area. And again, right from the very beginning, we developed our own bespoke programs to deal with that. We hired people that we talk about, broad-minded people, joined-up thinkers, people who are thirsty and hungry for knowledge, and we feed that thirst. And that is our R&D process, and we actively encourage it. And that's what develops our product over time and develops value. And it is a competitive advantage. It is crystallized in client retention, and that is the foundation of strong organic growth, because you need to hold on to clients, you need to have deep, long relationships to release new opportunities within those clients. And once you have that, you have a platform for growth, which is exceptional, which is what we've tried to create.
There's when we look at best workplace environments, there are a bunch of things that have historically been sort of promoted by various agencies. Some agencies have been incredibly proud of the sort of perks that they provide to employees, everything from sort of free massages to somebody to come and collect their laundry and take it in, and sort of stuff that might seem slightly gimmicky. Some have been extraordinarily proud of their professional development programs and their training, in the belief that if you really invest in training and developing people, they will be more loyal. Others have focused on giving people a sort of sense of mission, that what they do is important, that what they do has some sort of broader societal meaning. I mean, there are lots of different aspects to this. What have you, Ralf, found to be the most critical things in ensuring that people want to come and work for Hering Schuppner, and then once they're there, want to stay there for, you know, if you want them, the rest of their lives?
Right. Well, I think it's all around entrepreneurship, and it's to be in control of your own destiny, being part of the valuation of the firm, benefit from the growth of the company. I mean, many of the things the large networks are doing are perfectly right. I mean, knowledge sharing, training, development of talent, etc. I mean, all this is very essential, but it's something you have to do anyway. The key why people are staying so long, and just to give you an example, from 26 of our senior leadership in the firm, we are about 160 people, and we have 26 partners and managing directors in the firm. Out of those 26, 12 joined us as juniors from university 15, 16, 18 years ago, and are now managing directors or partners of the firm.
Do you have any idea how much you've saved in headhunting fees over the years?
Actually, Paul, we never ever used any headhunter ever in the history of the firm. And we can, if you like, go more into detail how we attract young talent and try to keep them in the firm and grow them up into becoming a senior person in our management team. But the key to all that is to have a clearly set out, system of values, which you're not just printing on paper, but which you're really living every single day. And people who are joining us experience after a couple of weeks and months that we're really very serious about those values. The second reason certainly is that even the very young talent have a chance to work with very experienced senior people every day. We have what we call a low leverage, high margin system. So one partner or managing director is probably working with 3 or 4 people, that's it. And working on 3 or 4 or 5 mandates, that's it. Because we go very, very deep into our clients and service them on the level of really being internally a connoisseur of their issues and their problems and help them to solve those issues. And this is very attractive for a young person who's just leaving university to be able to work with someone who has 15 or 20 years experience in that business on a daily basis and sitting at the table when you really help to transform a corporation. One of the other reasons certainly is that, well, thanks God, we're providing the most attractive assignments in the markets to our people, and that's what attracting people to join us, because they really want to be part of that kind of transformation process when it comes to, major assignments, those kind of price mandates everybody wants to have. And that is finally feeding the reputation of our brand and creates a kind of employer branding in the marketplace that attracts people to join us on junior level and on senior level. So we never hire actively from competition. We never use any kind of headhunting firms. We have an academic program running since 10 years We're working very closely with 7 of the leading universities in Germany. 2 of our partners are professors at 2 universities with 40 days of presence every year. We're paying all that. We're sponsoring PhD programs, etc., which gives us a fair chance to identify probably the best junior talent in the marketplace year by year by year. And we're hiring between 12 and 15 high potential talents from universities every year. And most of them we ever hired are still with the company, which is, giving us the comfort level that, giving a certain environment or producing a certain environment in which people really can take responsibility is probably the most important argument to join our firm. I want everybody to be his or her little CEO, in his field of responsibility. And they have all the freedom also to make the mistakes you're making, but please just once. Take the key learning and do it better next time.
What about you, Christine? What have you found the critical success factors to be in this regard?
I think I would echo your comments in that for us, we call it, it's more than entrepreneurship, it's more of a sense of ownership. And that, as I said, when we call it the employee-driven workplace, every one of our employees participates in one of 4 operational groups that decide everything about the firm, from the equipment that we're going to buy, to how the professional development program will work, to the way we market the firm, to one group which we call the Red Group, which is the extras division, which fosters networking and social interaction and teamwork building. And we treat it like an account. You have a certain amount of hours, you get a certain amount of budget, and everyone from the interns feel as though they have the ability and the authority, as you said, the freedom to make suggestions to make the firm better. And that also comes from having an organization with a fairly flat hierarchy, where people feel as though everyone is respected equally. And I boil it down to 2 things, respect and flexibility. Because with those 2 things, when you say the word respect, a lot of that comes with things like trust, with giving people the autonomy to decide how they're going to work, when they're going to work, where they're going to work, making decisions on the clients. And then when it comes to that flexibility means, I know for me, I work in a certain way that's very different from the Gen Yers and the millennials in our office. They want to work with the music in their ears, sitting in a beanbag chair on the floor, and you have to be able to be open-minded that different work styles are going to enhance productivity for different types. And so for us, I have tried to create an environment where anything is on the table. If it's going to help the agency do better for clients or to help productivity and performance, the employees are comfortable enough to bring those ideas to the table and then to enact them, and know that they will be given the resources to do so.
One of the things that seems to me to be a challenge for our industry, and has been for as long as I've been writing about it, is that we have a tendency to sort of cannibalize each other when it comes to talent, and so we're recruiting from the firm down the street, and what happens, it seems to me, 2 things. The first is that people tend to rise to the level of incompetence much faster than would be ideal. The second is that eventually the supply of talent becomes sort of stale, and you alluded to the fact that your firm has been very successful recruiting people from non-traditional backgrounds. I wondered, and Fraser, let me ask you first, I wondered what you've done, whether you've done anything special beyond what you do to create an excellent workplace, to create the kind of workplace that is attractive to and conducive to people who come into our industry from related or unrelated fields.
I think one of the things that we're prone to as an industry is pretending we're specialists. And actually that creates a whole string of P&Ls within businesses that don't need to exist. So one of the key structural things that we have always believed in is having one P&L. So that removes what I would describe as negative internal competition, where actually it disincentivizes collaboration, sharing of knowledge, actually covering people's backsides when things are getting tough. The other thing is politics. I think politics is a very destructive thing, and it's a very destructive thing in a people business in particular. And I think working very hard, and actually it comes from leadership and absolute disdain for the negative effects of politics, and actually people getting ahead by manipulating situations or manoeuvring, is really important to our success. We are an ideas business. We're a business that thrives on risk to a certain extent, and I think if there's high risk within a business because of politics, then actually you suppress creativity very quickly. I think you suppress people taking a risk around their opinions, and that's what people are paying us for ultimately. So one P&L, no politics. I think the other thing that you mentioned was actually not overstretching people, giving people the ability, the opportunity to create depth in what they do, actually genuinely creates progression, and it creates a depth of interest in clients, which you can't foster if you're working on 8 accounts. So we have pretty strict rules that we have to work very hard on moving resources around to make it happen, but none of our people work on more than 4 bits of business at a time, and our more junior people only work on 3, because they tell us that is all they can do, and we believe them, and we need them to deliver defining work as far as we're concerned. And if they're spreading their time across a week, across 6, 7, 8 clients, that's just not possible.
What's worked for you, Ralf?
Well, I think there's not a lot to add to what my colleagues have just been saying. I mean, it's mainly to create an environment in which people have a chance to, really determine their daily life. And we should never forget they're spending more life with the firm than they probably spend with their families or friends at home, at least in our business. And I mean, working 60 or 80 hours a week, specifically in M&A transaction situations or IPOs or in crisis situations or restructurings, can be quite normal, specifically these days. I mean, September, October, November is always the hottest time of the year. And you can just get the best out of your people if you allow them to bring the best they have to the table. So just listen to what they're saying. For instance, our junior people have an offsite every year for 3 days, just our junior people, and they can determine what they want to do during those 3 days. They can tell us where they want to go and what kind of speakers they would like to listen to, and whether they want to have someone from the senior management or a partner being with them or not. Things like that give them a fair chance to express what for them this business is really all about. And if you listen carefully to what they're saying, not just once or twice a year, but every day, and you feed that back into the senior management team, you know exactly where they stand and how you can help them to become even better people in their own right and in the interest of the firm.
What has been important for you, Christine, in terms of metrics for this? How do you measure how well you're doing? How do you benchmark? How do you make sure you're constantly improving? I think initially, for example, you alluded to turnover rate. Mm-hmm. And I've always wondered whether there is some sort of platonic ideal of a turnover rate. You don't particularly want it to be 0 because then everybody, you end up keeping around people you wouldn't necessarily want to keep around, but you don't want it to be 30% because then you're replacing 1/3 of your people every year and clients hate that. So how do you...
Right, and you're right, there are points. One of the things that we think is a hallmark of our firm is there are some people who we hire a lot from out of school. We really don't cannibalize too much at all locally. And sometimes you hire someone out of school and they spend 5 years with you and they decide, you know what, this isn't for me. And so we've helped those people make the transition to another field. And so the way I look at turnover isn't just the raw numbers. I look at it as, who did we lose that we didn't want to? Who did we lose that should have stayed? And those numbers are very tiny. And sometimes it's a matter of, we kept this person too long. We should have let them go sooner because they didn't have potential within our career path. Mm-hmm. So we don't look at, we do have a ton of different metrics that we use. We do surveys in-house within the agency. But the overall metric that matters to everyone is, how's the firm doing? What is the firm's revenues? What is the firm's productivity? What is the firm's profit margin? And we share all those numbers. Everyone in our agency sees every number except individual salaries. And so everyone's aware of what those metrics are. And I think that, to me, what we're trying to instill is that this is a business. You are an important part of this business, so you should understand the business metrics, the way we measure success. There aren't any different soft metrics that matter as much as, are we able to invest in you because we have a strong financial footing to do so? And the other point I would make is that we do measure, what you talked about with no politics, Fraser, really resonates with me. And in fact, I always carry around in my purse my no assholes rule. which says there will be no assholes in this agency. One of the things that you talked about, Paul, when people move, they create the prima donna effect, that somebody controls so much business or is so amazing that you will pay anything to keep them or to steal them from someone else. And we believe that it's more important to value the team rather than the individual, because those prima donnas have tons of hidden costs. They have hidden costs in usually the attitude they take with the junior people who they run through. Many of them create HR issues. Many of them are not even the bigger stars you think, because eventually those clients often have issues. And we look at the hard numbers of if someone needs to go to class to learn how to be better coaches, how much are we willing to invest in them? And if they're too difficult, then you go. And I think that this is an industry that caters too much to the assholes in the business.
Perfectly right. Yeah,
one of my rules when we set up was I was never going to work with assholes. And actually, that's one of the great privileges of starting your own business, is you don't have to.
Yeah.
And that goes for clients too.
Absolutely.
Our rules are very rude in that respect. I mean, we don't like to work with you, you're out.
Yeah.
Grow or go.
I have to say that one of the things that I believe about all the firms that we've recognized as great workplaces is that there is a strain of ruthlessness in their culture that says if you don't fit in here, you've got to get out. And they reject the sort of foreign, the antibodies coalesce very quickly around foreign objects and kick them out. And it's an interesting lesson. I'm going to turn this over to the audience because the whole guiding principle of this event is that it should be a dialogue and a conversation. All of our attendees are industry leaders. All of our attendees are very senior people. They have as much to contribute as anybody on the stage. And so I'd like to throw this open for comments or questions from the floor. And we can do about 5 or 10 minutes of that, guys. Thank you. Really? Okay, excellent. Lisa.
Are you using any profiling tools to make the hiring process a little more efficient? These would be personality profiling tools.
So did everybody hear the question, which was about profiling tools and whether anybody's using any profiling tools?
We use Rembrandt's profiling tool. We use it more after we've decided to hire someone and they've reached to a certain level, because the Rembrandt profile then helps us decide what professional development and how their career path should be focused, because we like to start people off on a track right from the beginning. And it's a little more specific in terms of some of the qualities, not just skill sets that you want to work with. And then we use those for our management team. We do a check like every 2 years to go through that process again to make sure that we're all in sync with the softer, as I said, more of the, not the capabilities, but more of the ways in which we work together. And we've found that the cost-benefit analysis has been really efficient. We don't usually get a big aha, but there are definitely things that when you have a conversation with someone that says you're weaker on your ability to persuade, it's something we want to work on. Having that tool provides another objective resource that helps the employee understand how you're trying to help them grow.
When I started in this business 25 years ago in the UK, I found out about a firm that was doing profiling like that, and I thought it'd be fun to go along and be profiled. And I took the test. It was amazing accurate. And I said to them, would you hire me based on this test? And the answer was essentially hell no. And not to put too fine a point on it, they certainly didn't put it like this, but I suspect I failed the asshole test that Christine was talking about earlier. Elise.
We're all wonderful storytellers for our clients, but I think when you're independent, you often have a very compelling story about how you built the firm. And we found that to be really true. We make a real concerted effort to tell our story, to get our employees excited, because many of them weren't there when the firm started. I wonder if any of you do something really powerful that helps keep the history alive and gets new employees excited about your story and what makes you so unique.
Well, I think in all our cases, the history is still there. Hello. And I still like to tell the story that we started this firm in 1994 with 2 offices, 2 partners, 2 assistants, and no client. Then, you know, the story begins, and you can probably spend either 10 minutes or 2 hours in telling it. Depends on the situation. But yes, I think people like to be part of that heritage, and they have a lot of admiration for the fact that you created something out of nothing. And for them it is probably also quite a challenge to do that again inside our corporation and to start probably a new practice or a new business field, a new company, which we do from time to time just to start a new business with new partners and for a specific new business idea which we want to develop and we believe in, and that creates, again, entrepreneurship. It's all about entrepreneurship, not just by a few entrepreneurs, but by everybody in the company behaving like an entrepreneur and taking responsibility every day.
I mean, it's something that we build into our induction process. The history of the firm is very important. I also spend time doing lunches and breakfasts, ostensibly to talk about where we came from. And I think it's a very important part of the brand. It's a very important part of why people join the firm. I think, you know, having that entrepreneurial spirit retold is very attractive to people. It's very attractive because they want to be part of something, part of a journey that didn't start in 1920, but actually started in living memory. We are the embodiment of that. And I think that the one possible enemy of that is that founders can be a little bit shy about it. Yeah. And we shouldn't be.
Ralf, we are from India, and in India there is a shortage of talent. So we see a high turnover across the industry. Part of the reason there is because there is just a clear shortage, right from the education level. What we started doing is hiring across from different industries. So not only at the beginning level, but at the manager level. How do you look at training those people and getting them to speed from a capability perspective, if you guys are doing that?
We have an in-house academy system, which is mandatory for everyone in the company. On junior level, mid-manager level, and senior level, we have in-house and external trainers and speakers and training sessions at least twice a month. We have a knowledge sharing, intranet-based knowledge sharing system. We have case histories available on each and every client. I mean, there's a wealth of knowledge and a system of knowledge sharing, and that brings people very, very quickly up to speed. I totally agree. I mean, on senior level, as I said before, we never hire from competition. We are hiring senior journalists from media. We're hiring people from investor relations of major corporations, from corporate affairs or corporate communications departments of major corporations. We're even hiring investment bankers for our M&A transaction practice and IPO practice. And they all, well, need to get up to speed in their understanding what we're delivering as a communications consultancy. But I was always saying communications is not, open brain surgery. If you are a seasoned business person, if you really understand in-depth, if you have in-depth knowledge of your sector, you learn pretty fast what it's all about to advise clients on their communication strategy. As long as the knowledge is there and it's shared, and every partner and managing director in the firm has the obligation as your mentor to bring you up to speed as quickly as possible. And normally that takes probably between 6 and 9 months, and people are really in a situation where they can counsel clients on communication strategies based on their in-depth knowledge of the industry or the issue.
Doug, and sorry, I probably should have said this earlier, but as you get up to ask questions, could you identify yourself and mention maybe where you're from? Doug, sorry.
I'm Doug Ports. I've been in PR for about 40 years. In 1991, I established a one-person business which grew through permutations and combinations to about 100 people. Sold that a couple of years ago. In my experience, the single most significant thing that you can do to affect corporate culture in the communications firm is throw out the timesheet. Time is a commodity. If you're going to bill by a commodity, you're going to treat people like a commodity. If you say, how much time did you bill? You're treating them like a commodity. If you say, how much value did you provide? You're treating them as a value add. The most significant thing in the organizations I created, we had significantly less than 10% turnover. Never did we lose anybody to a competitor. We lost people to some organizations like the NFL. And so the most significant thing was the fact that they all were treated and focused and driven by value to the client, not time.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. It's one of my favorites. If you pay peanuts, you're going to be serviced by monkeys. We just have a value-based system in our firm.
It's always fun when somebody opens one of the 2 or 3 biggest cans of worms in our entire industry right at the end of a panel discussion. I couldn't agree more, but...
Yeah. I agree. We do have timesheets, but we don't sell on the basis of measuring time. I mean, our mantra is we sell outcomes. The reason we have timesheets is to make sure we have the right resources in the right place. So it's an internal management tool, most of all. And that's a constant battle we have to fight as a value system that we have that stems from me. The most senior people in the firm don't do timesheets because we want to be available when we're needed, not when the budget's available. So
exactly.
Actually, we are available to our teams all the time. We work in teams all the time. If we measured our time and ticked boxes, we'd bust the budgets. And our view is we collect that value at some point in the future. In a relationship.
If I could add, the value is a very nebulous word. And training people at all levels to understand what value is a very big challenge. And I know within our agency, we do something every month. We have a client service award where you have to do, in one page, tell me what you did to add value to that client that month. Mm-hmm. And then we have guest judges, and people start to learn what adding value didn't mean they gave you more budget. Adding value didn't mean you got 3 hits instead of 2. You have to teach what value is, because it means different things to different clients as well. And so that, I agree with you. I think we use timesheets as a management tool for staffing, but that value difference is something that I think a lot of independent firms do very well because they have those frank conversations with clients. What is going to add value to your business? And it's not just 17 more hours this month.
Yeah. We have time for one more question. Oh, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know do you have a mechanism to identify talents that works for these guys? Because sometimes they act like a firewall between you and the rest of the agency. So what do you do? How do you deal with this?
Well, in our agency, as we said, in an employee-driven workplace, assholes are self-identified because they stand out. And secondly, in the 360-degree peer review organization, the way the team works, if someone is not upholding their end of the bargain, the rest of the team come together to force that person out because it affects everyone. And if they know that there are no repercussions, if they say so-and-so is doing X behavior and someone doesn't say, well, so-and-so is a VP, so live with it. If that doesn't happen, then the team dynamics will work themselves to get rid of the jerks. I don't need to know. It's not me who usually identifies someone who's a problem employee. It's the rest of the team. Because they will see either in what's getting done or the value that isn't being created is being driven by a failure of one of the team members to do what needs to be done.
Great. Thank you very much, panel. Thank you very much, audience. I am going to hand things over to Julian, and we're going to get on away from the talent side of the business and on to the how do we win clients side of the business. Thank you very much.
Thank you.